Welcome to your Canadiens Connection on Rocket Sports Radio. We are proud to be the trusted source for all things Habs for more than a decade. This is the Canadiens Connection Podcast.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Canadiens Connection podcast here on Rocket Sports Radio, keeping you informed, engaged, and entertained. My name is Michael Spinella, and I'll be your host for the next hour. This is episode 286 of the Canadiens Connection podcast, and I'm pleased to be joined in the studio by my co-host, the editor of the Hockey News Montreal, the founder and the president of Rocket Sports, Rick Stevens. And how are you doing today? Good trade deadline week.
What a trade deadline week. It started early. It got jump-started on Wednesday, but as it turned out, folks were saying that might affect Friday. Didn't.
Nope.
An exciting Friday as well. And listen, we've been waiting, how many weeks we've been talking about this, waiting for the trade deadline. It's here. It means that we got lots to talk about today in breaking down what went on and maybe what didn't go on at the trade deadline for the Montreal Canadiens.
Yeah, a couple former Habs got moved as well, and I'm looking at my Joel Edmondson memorabilia and seeing that he's a Leaf. I'm not entirely sure. I guess I'll hang on to it for now. I hope he's not a Leaf too long.
You're not going to get a Leaf locker room nameplate of Joel Edmondson?
No. But yeah, quite the busy show. Lots of news to get through in this first segment, along with a recap of this past week in terms of games, roster news, and a look at some trades from around the NHL. And segment 2, grade the GM, Kent Hughes, at the helm of his third NHL trade deadline. We'll talk about everything that went down this week. And in segment 3, we'll turn it over to our listeners for the Have You Say segment. Our Canadiens Connection question of the week is, what is the most shocked you have been by a Habs trade in the last 20 years? We want to hear from you, and what's the best way for all of our devoted listeners to reach out to us?
You can text us. That's easy. We have a text number for you. It's the Rocket Sports text line. It is 585-3ROCKET. 585-3ROCKET. Just type out those letters, and 585-376-2538. That will get a text from you to us. Just tell us who you are and where you're from, and we can read it on the air.
Yeah, you can also follow us at Habs Connection on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Plus, you can check out our website, canadiensconnection.fm. Make sure that you check out our comprehensive pregame previews and postgame recaps for every Canadiens game at thn.com/Montreal. That's the hockey news for Montreal. And here's what's happened since we've been gone. Going to March the 2nd, Montreal went to visit the Tampa Bay Lightning, and they come away with a shootout loss, 4-3. That was a Caden Primo start, and a very Caden Primo type start, in that he'll dazzle you with brilliance in the first period and then baffle you as the game goes along. The Habs were actually up 2-0 after one period, but Tampa tied things up after the second. A goal apiece in the third would send it all the way to the shootout. And for Tampa Bay, it was Victor Hedman with that shootout game-winning goal.
The sniper, Victor Hedman, in the 6th round of the shootout. This was the Canadiens got out to a 2-0 lead. Again, it's that second period that seems to let them down, letting their opposition back into the game. Josh Anderson scored a goal in this game, deflecting a third period shot by Cole Caulfield. That was his first goal in 16 games. Right place, right time. But it led to the Canadiens losing that game, picking up the loser point. At that point, they had won just once in their previous 8 games.
And Montreal coming away with a win on March the 5th. They visit the Nashville Predators. They win 4-3 in overtime. And honestly, kind of a weird game overall. I think we have to talk about that David Savard goal. What a highlight reel goal. Ovechkin couldn't even get it from an angle like that, as David Savard with the big slap shot off the stanchion on the side of the boards. And while UC Saros is behind the net waiting for the puck to come to him and play it, somehow the puck just takes the most weird bounce and dribbles into the net. So the easiest goal that David Savard will ever score. Do you think that was on purpose?
No.
No, not at all.
Not at all. He was just clearing it in, a routine clear in, and it just took a weird bounce off the stanchion, caromed right. How it made that angle, and you got to feel. I personally, I felt for the goaltenders there. UC Saros, he couldn't. It wasn't his fault, and you expect that the arena staff. Got told by the GM, fix that, please, for the next game. So a bit of luck there that allowed the Canadiens to get back into it, and also some hard work. I credit them for that. But that, 2 goals in 6 seconds by the Canadiens, David Savard goal being the second of the 2 goals, just kind of set the Predators back on their heels, and I think that allowed the Canadiens to get the win here.
Yeah, Nick Suzuki with his 25th goal of the season in overtime to win that one, and like you said, I think a lot of hard work and the Habs not giving up at any point. So I think that was a solid win for them.
Absolutely.
And a couple days later, a bit of a different story. On March the 7th, Montreal visits Carolina, and they lose 4-1. Despite the Habs going up 1-0 pretty early in the first, they were pretty heavily outplayed after that, lacked a lot of zone time and possession. The Canes were up 2-1 after the second period and put on an absolute clinic in the third. 2 goals in the third period for the Canes to go up 4-1. At no point did Montreal really have a whole lot of extended possession or anything. It just seemed like the Hurricanes were playing a game of keep away at this point.
They just as you said, locked it down, shut down. Really good defensive effort, a good defensive team. And, since then they've added at the trade deadline. We'll talk about that a bit later. But the Hurricanes, just as you said, putting on a clinic. I was very impressed with what they did, and listen, the Canadiens have a tough time at PNC Arena. They have lost 11 straight games, and you're wondering when this game started. Frederik Andersen hadn't played. He had missed 49 games, I believe. He hadn't played since early November with that blood clot issue. And if you've noticed throughout the season, more and more, it's the opposition's backup who starts against the Canadiens, or in a few cases, it's been goalies who have been off a bit and are getting reintroduced. When you think about the Canadiens going forward and their record and getting to be a better team, also keep in mind that as they get to be a better team, they're going to face better goaltenders in the upcoming years as well.
But for now, though, I kind of like getting to know a lot of those backup goaltenders.
Sure.
Every now and then a name pops up, and I'm like, wow, I didn't know that guy existed. But good for Freddie, too. I think you have to give Freddie Andersen some credit. I think that first goal, the Joshua Waugh goal by Montreal, he might want that one back.
Yeah.
But after that, he really shut things down and lots of great saves.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And folks were wondering what Carolina would do, if they would do anything with their goaltending at the deadline. Apparently not. They have confidence, put Rant on waivers. So, I agree. He looked very good after that first goal.
So the Canadiens' record right now, 24, 29, and 10. That's 58 points, 26th in the NHL. And the Habs have a 0.0% chance of making the playoffs. 75-point pace, and I think that it's fair to say that the Habs. I don't think it's going to be a very exciting rest of the season for them. What do you think?
Well, the exciting part might come in bringing up players from Laval, having players join from junior or college or from Europe. Lane Hudson, David Reinbacher, and Adam Engstrom. So there's still some excitement to be had. It's also going to be an opportunity to keep an eye on the draft lottery standings. The chances of winning the lottery, those kinds of things. So in that, I think the perspective just changes at this point after the trade deadline.
Yeah, so make sure that you check out Habs Notepad, Habs headlines, and feature articles and game day posts appearing regularly at thn.com/Montreal. That's the Hockey News Montreal. And now let's get to our roster news. To start, Colin White is currently day-to-day with an upper body injury. White's only suited up 5 games for the Montreal Canadiens since being claimed off of waivers. Still yet to put up his first NHL point this season.
Yeah, it was... you hate to see it. He was injured in practice. I believe that happened on Monday, crashed into the net. It's bad enough being injured in a game. You hate to see a player injured in practice.
Raphael Harvey-Pinard returned to the lineup against the Predators. Not super noticeable since his return. He's been centering that fourth line. Tough season for RPH. I think we talked about that a little bit. Just injuries getting in the way, and it feels like he's not had an opportunity to really go on a run.
And really hasn't when he's been in the lineup. He's been in the lineup for 26 games, a goal and 6 assists, 7 points in 26 games. He just has been a shell of himself. Kent Hughes brought in Colin White to take faceoffs on that fourth line, and so they could put Gignac back in Laval. And now it's Raphael Harvey-Pinard who's having to learn faceoffs, he said, in order to center that fourth line until Colin White gets back.
The Canadiens announced that assistant general manager John Sedgwick has signed a multi-year contract extension. His responsibilities will include player negotiations, daily salary cap management, and strategic planning, among other tasks. So John Sedgwick has been in the organization for a while now. So I think congratulations to him for the way he's moved around and fit in different areas.
Yeah, it is. Congratulations to him. He is a leftover. He was essentially he's a lawyer by training. His role during the Bergevin era was a capologist, essentially. As we know, Mark Bergevin didn't have a clue about the cap. John Sedgwick worked it all out for him. And usually when a new regime comes in, they, as we've seen, replace a lot of the players. To his credit, John Sedgwick is a carryover. The other part of the news this week is that they formalized that he is now officially the general manager of the Laval Rocket, and by association also Trois-Rivières Lions. So that was always that was how he was performing anyway. But he's been given that title as well.
The Canadiens made a minor trade, probably impacts the Laval Rocket more so than the Canadiens this season, at least, as they acquired Jacob Perreault from the Anaheim Ducks in exchange for Jan Mysak. So Jan Mysak, someone I think that was underutilized in Laval, still a pretty decent prospect, but maybe didn't have much of an opportunity here. Jacob Perreault comes in. He's a former first-round pick by the Ducks, I believe the same draft year as Jan Mysak. Yeah,
that's right. We'll talk a little bit more about them both in our second segment, but this is a fresh start for both players. Jan Mysak, for whatever reason, wasn't a favorite of JF Houle, so didn't get much opportunity until the Laval Rocket ran into some injury situations.
The Canadiens traded goaltender Jake Allen to the New Jersey Devils in exchange for a conditional third-round pick. So that was Kent Hughes' big trade deadline day splash, and we'll dissect this a little bit more in that second segment as well.
For sure.
And just a little paper transaction to note here as well. The Canadiens sent Joshua Waugh and Jaden Struble to Laval and then recalled them. So why exactly did they do this?
Well, it's the kind of paper transaction that you need to do in the AHL to make both of those players eligible for postseason play in the AHL. If now the Laval Rocket are 4 or 5 points out of that play-in round, but if they get there, and maybe you want to send a Joshua Waugh down, early to help them get there. But both players now qualify for the playoffs because they were on the roster after trade deadline. And it should be said that the rule is that teams are allowed, NHL teams are allowed 4 non-emergency recalls between the trade deadline and the end of the season. That means that the Canadiens have 2 non-emergency recalls remaining. Emergency recalls unlimited, but 2 non-emergency recalls left.
And with that, I think it's a good time to get to our Habs prospect report.
It's time for the Rocket Report. The Rocket Sports Media Team is your premier source for information about the Laval Rocket, the AHL affiliate of the Montreal Canadiens, as well as Habs prospects playing in the CHL, NCAA, and leagues around the world. Bookmark thn.com/Montreal to follow our comprehensive coverage of Canadiens prospects.
So each week, we like to start things off by highlighting a Montreal Canadiens prospect. And you know what? It's been a while since we've talked about Owen Beck of the Saginaw Spirit. So Owen Beck was traded from the Peterborough Petes to the Saginaw Spirit a little bit earlier this season. Since joining Saginaw in 26 games, he's put up 41 points. And he's actually a plus 20, so that's a bit of a standout stat for sure. In his last 5 games, he's put up 8 points. In his last 10, he's put up 15 points. So Owen Beck having a really good time since he's been traded to Saginaw.
7 goals, 8 assists in those last 10 games, as you mentioned. Kind of an even split this season. 25 games with the Petes, 26 games with the Spirit. The difference is 30 points with Peterborough and 41 points in those 26 games, as you said. So he's really made... he's amped up his game and made a contribution to the Saginaw Spirit. We know that Owen Beck will be in the Memorial Cup. How do we know that? Well, Saginaw are the hosts this year for the Memorial Cup. The hosts get a free pass, so we're excited to see him there. And I should just say that Owen Beck had a 12-game point streak going. That just ended on Wednesday, but to say he's been on fire is a bit of an understatement.
Absolutely. So we'll continue to follow along Owen Beck as the season progresses. An interesting article from The Athletic came out this week entitled Top 15 Drafted Goalie Prospects. Right at the top of this list, as this was done more in tiers as opposed to an official rankings. Of course, in Tier 1, I think no surprises, Jesper Wallstedt and Yaroslav Askarov. I think both of these guys are turning out to be great goalie prospects. But if you look at tier number 2, of course, there's Buffalo Sabres' Devin Levi. But right there next to him is one Jacob Fowler of the Montreal Canadiens. Feels like this could be a little bit high, but certainly nice to see Jacob Fowler get some recognition here.
Absolutely. It's... Yeah, we in that tier 2, Spencer Knight, as you said, and as you said, Devin Levi, Jacob Fowler right there, and he's played, I think, almost every minute for Boston College. One of the best teams in the NCAA. Does that have anything to do with it? Sure, it does. But he has also stood on occasions has stood on his head and stolen some games for Boston College. So this is nice recognition, but let's calm things down and remember he's in his rookie year. I don't know that he looked particularly great at the World Championships, the World Junior Championships. Let me say, not spectacular anyway. And so I think this is a real nice feather in his cap, but he's on a long road. But at least there is a potential number 1 NHL goaltender, a goaltender with NHL potential in the organization, because I don't think the ones that are presently in the organization have that potential. So the other, I think, interesting part for Canadiens fans is, yes, Jesper Wallstedt, and I agree. What a great goalie prospect, but right there, on par with him in that tier 1, Yaroslav Askarov, and we mourn the fact that he was offered to the Canadiens, and Kent Hughes said no. I don't think he'll be as available going forward, but what a great goalie prospect he is turning out to be.
Absolutely. And I think it's a good time to get to the Laval Rocket and the week they've just had. Going back to March the 2nd, Laval visits Springfield and lose 7-3. All I'm going to do here is I'm going to read the title of Amy's recap that she put up at thn.com/Montreal. And the title of this game recap is More Than 50 Shots Isn't Enough. So definitely get over there and read this recap. I had a ton of fun with it, and I think that should tell you how this game went, given that they lost 7-3. A couple days off in between before Syracuse comes to town. Laval loses in overtime 3-2, tied at regulation. It was Gabriel Fortier that scored for the Crunch in the final minute of overtime to win. And finally, a win comes on March the 8th. Laval beats Cleveland 4-1. This was led by a couple of defensemen. Logan Mailloux got things started. William Trudeau also got a goal on that one. And a great start from Jakub Dobeš, too. I thought he looked fantastic in that game.
I thought he's looked very good all week. And it goes beyond that. Interesting stat talked about during the broadcast is that Jakub Dobeš, and remember, he's a rookie, is the second busiest goaltender in the American Hockey League. Second most starts this season, which is incredible for such a young goalie prospect. And there was some question about him in the early part of the season, but once he got paired not with Strauss-Mann, then his confidence is taken, and he's since Kaskasuo was injured, it's been Jakub Dobeš in every shift. So I thought that was an interesting stat, and he's been very, very good.
So Laval's record currently 24-24, 6-2. That's 56 points and 23rd in the AHL. Upcoming games for the Laval Rocket today on March the 9th at 3 p.m. Cleveland's coming to town to visit Laval. And then on the 13th and the 15th of March, it's Bridgeport. Going one level down to the Trois-Rivières Lions. They had a very typical week for them since the new year. Starting things off on March the 2nd, they get shut out 4-0 by Worcester. The very next day against the very same team, they managed to win 5-2, so they get in the win column there. A couple days off in between before March the 6th against Adirondack. They win 5-4, so that's another good win. So I think it's been a while since they've had back-to-back wins like that. But then ending the week, March 8th on a losing note, once again against Worcester, they lose 4-3. So like I said, I think a couple wins in there, that's nice, but mostly bad games still as they continue to struggle. This might be the first time I've been complimentary about Strauss-Mann on the podcast here, as he went to the Trois-Rivières Lions. He's put up 2 starts and actually posted a win and a .955 save percentage in those 2 games. So he's actually looked good, and I think he's probably better suited for an ECHL goaltender, right?
Yeah, for sure. You want more news about the Trois-Rivières Lions, make sure every Monday there's a Lions notepad put out by Chris G, and you can find it at thn.com/Montreal.
Trois-Rivières' record currently 22-25, 3-3. That's 12th place in the Eastern Conference. And did you know that we also handle the Quebec Maritimes Junior Hockey League for the Hockey News? So head over to thn.com/QMJAHL. And what we've been doing the past few weeks is putting out a Memorial Cup Contenders series written by Mike Raschel. And this has been pretty good. I've enjoyed reading through and getting to know some of the opponents that the top of the QMJAHL might have to face as we approach the Memorial Cup.
For sure. This week, Mike finishes up the OHL East and talking about some honorable mentions, North Bay Battalion and Brantford Bulldogs. That will come out on Sunday. And then next week, Mike's going to switch to the WHL, the Western Hockey League, and talk about the contenders from that Canadian Junior Hockey League.
So you can find all the best Canadiens prospects coverage at thn.com/Montreal, and you can find the best English language coverage of the Quebec Maritimes Junior Hockey League at thn.com/QMJHL. And now, hockey news. This is going to be a pretty busy chunk of news here. Let's start things off with The Athletic, as they put out an article entitled NHL GM's Tendencies. And the most active GM that they had on their list is one Mike Grier of the San Jose Sharks. And of course, the majority of those transactions being selling off assets, as he's been doing in the Sharks rebuild. Coming in at number 3 was one Kent Hughes. And again, the majority of his moves have been for selling, and a few moves just behind that for AHL and marginal prospect trades.
We talked about it last week, and if you missed last week's episode, we went through Kent Hughes's his history, his trade history. That was on the Canadiens Connection episode 285, and you can find that at canadiensconnection.fm. But we talked about, if you want to know about what a general manager is going to do, and get a sense at their patterns, then you look at their history. And that's exactly what The Athletic has done here. As you said, the most active GMs are going to be the ones that are involved in rebuilds. So you're going to see Kyle Davidson, you're going to see Mike Grier, you're going to see Kent Hughes. It lists Kent Hughes as making, on average, since he arrived, 1.1 trades per month. And that sounds, maybe that's a bit misleading because there was a pile of those trades that came at the trade deadline 2 years ago, with Arturi Lehkonen and Brett Kulak and Ben Sherrod and all those kinds of things. It's kind of stabled since then. One thing that they've done is break it into categories, and interesting that there's some selling, there's some buying, there's some activity at the trade deadline, there's activity at the draft. One thing that Kent Hughes has maybe been a little bit more reluctant to do compared to the other GMs at the top of the list is moving up in the at the trade deadline, at the draft. And now that he's got all of these picks, is that will that be a temptation for him this coming draft? That's something we're going to keep an eye on, because I think that's an interesting aspect to the information that they've tracked here.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we mentioned early on in this episode, it was quite the busy trade deadline week. We could probably do a full 4-hour podcast just reading out all the trades, but instead of doing that, we're just going to highlight which teams we thought were probably the most improved and made the biggest splashes. So starting things off, let's go with the Carolina Hurricanes. So they add Jake Gensel and Evgeny Kuznetsov. So I think great ads. A little bit surprised to see the Kuznetsov trade, but they get some good value there. And the Hurricanes not having to give up too much, going the other way in that Jake Gensel trade. Of course, some draft picks and some prospects. One of those prospects being Cruz Lucius, not Chaz. I made that mistake early on, but I think the Hurricanes come out. They don't rock the core too much. They add a few complementary pieces. And I think kind of nice here to see Kuzi reunite with his former teammate and Dmitry Orlov. So I think the Carolina Hurricanes would be my first standout here. Is
Kuznetsov excited? Yes, I'd say so. After the trade, he got on a plane. He headed to Carolina with the hour flight. And he was on the ice practicing with his new teammates. That says something. I would say. And Jake Gensel, a rental, but probably the best rental of the trade deadline. And the Carolina Hurricanes didn't give up any of their top prospects. As you said, Cruz Lucius, a fourth-round pick, not to be confused with Chaz, a first-round pick. So I thought, the Carolina Hurricanes, as we said, were pretty impressive. When the Montreal Canadiens saw them on Thursday, I think they got much better after the trade deadline.
Absolutely. The Vegas Golden Knights are another one, probably the team that made the biggest splashes and brought in a couple of the biggest names as they add Anthony Mantha, Noah Hanifin, and Thomas Hertl. A couple of surprises, I think. I don't think anyone had this Thomas Hertl trade until the very last minute. Those that watched some trade deadline coverage on TSN saw that he was not talked about at all. And then in the final minutes, when Bob McKenzie walks in out of retirement, and he has a big scoop there. Anthony Mantha, also a great pickup. He's a big body. Maybe hasn't lived up to expectations, but I think that's a great complimentary piece. And of course, Noah Hanifin, one of the other bigger names available. They didn't have to give up a ton in that trade. And of course, their blue line just looks absolutely amazing. And adding in Thomas Hertl, I think the one thing that Vegas kind of lacked the last few seasons was maybe depth at center. I don't think that's a worry anymore.
It's incredible. What are you going to give them? An A+ grade, a 10 out of 10 grade. The way they added these pieces, and with Noah Hanifin, as you said, they didn't give up a whole lot, and it probably would have been more had they asked to speak to him and arranged a contract extension and all that sort of thing. They didn't. All they have to do is get him to Vegas and put him in that atmosphere, and then start talking to him. And like Thomas Hertl, as they said on the broadcast, I guess it was on a social media account, said that Hertl, in that move from California to Nevada, immediately saved over $6 million in taxes. Not hard to make that case. What I admired, and yes, we cover the Montreal Canadiens, but you got to give credit when somebody does something right, is, as you said, Hertl wasn't on anybody's radar. They got real creative. Here was a guy injured and is slated to come back. He'll be back before the end of the season and fit what they were looking for. And made the salary work. Yes, they're into LTIR money, and people criticize them about that, but they're playing within the rules, the current rules, and why wouldn't you like an owner who says, "I'm all in"? That's Bill Foley saying every year, "I'm all in. I don't care what you have to do. Be creative, go in and get the pieces, and be all in." I'm amazed at how creative they were able to be. And listen, Vegas is a wild card team right now. They've had a lot of injury problems. 2-7 their last 10. But this puts them into the Stanley Cup conversation.
Absolutely. And one of the other juggernauts out west that they'll be competing with is the Colorado Avalanche, and they make a pretty big splash as well. They add Sean Walker to their blue line. They also add Casey Middlestad from the Buffalo Sabres, so that's going to help out their center ice a ton, and I think a bit of a surprise with Bowen Byram going the other way, and of course adding as well Brandon Duheim. So they had to move out some quality to get quality, and I think they certainly did so. Also moving out Ryan Johansson's contract in the process, I thought that was well done by the Colorado Avalanche as well. You like that Vegas blue line? Well, how about that Colorado blue line now?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, this was an off-the-radar trade. Nobody had on their scorecard Casey Middlestat for Bowen Byron. A hockey trade, a 1-for-1 trade, and it filled a need for both teams. Casey Middlestat is an upgrade on Johansson, and how they maneuvered that, again, creative, wonderful. I thought that was great, and they get the blue line upgrade in Sean Walker. So again, GM's doing what GMs are supposed to do.
And Florida adding a couple of good complementary pieces, not really rocking the boat here, but certainly improving their forward depth at least, as they add Vladimir Tarasenko and Kyle Okposo. So I think some veteran leadership, some guys with experience. Of course, Tarasenko has a Stanley Cup ring, and Tarasenko, I guess, was only willing to lift his no trade clause to go to Florida. So Florida has made themselves a destination team, and nice to see that. I think they're going to make a lot of noise in the playoffs this year.
Speaking of saving money on taxes, well, you can go to Florida. Tarasenko, you feel bad for Ottawa in this case. They didn't get a whole lot back. I think that Okposo, and in terms of adding an Eric Stahl kind of player, a leadership kind of guy, Kevin Adams, moved him to Florida, and Bill Zito, another GM who has a great team. Just needed to upgrade a couple of things in terms of their middle six and some leadership, and did exactly that.
And the final team we'll talk about here, the Winnipeg Jets, and they seem to like to add their former Montreal Canadiens. And once again, I think not rocking the boat here, not messing with any chemistry, but certainly adding some good complementary pieces. They got to work early. They added Sean Monahan, and then this week they added Tyler Toffoli and Colin Miller. So I think the early work on Monahan already paying off. You've seen what he's brought to that roster. Toffoli is a very nice add. He'll help out that offense and bring some depth on that wing. Colin Miller, of course, more of a depth defenseman. He'll play a little bit lower on that D-core, but certainly someone that will come in and play quite a few minutes. So I think it's nice here that the Winnipeg Jets understand that they have a good team. They added to it, but not rocking the boat is what I like to see here.
A late first-round pick for Monahan, middle-ish picks for the other players. Tyler Toffoli comes in. He can score goals, but he's a pretty responsible two-way player, and Winnipeg's going to like that. You'll see Toffoli likely with Sean Monahan, and Sean Monahan, as you said, has really helped the Winnipeg power play. But to a line perhaps of Monahan, Toffoli, and Ehlers, that's a strong second line for Winnipeg. And Colin Miller is just a steady, solid third line pairing guy. And it was what they were looking for, depth on defense. So I thought they did extremely well as in addition here.
Absolutely. And before we head into our first break, we're doing a bad quote of the week. And this time it comes from the Canucks general manager, Patrick Allvin. The quote here is, "We were involved in most of the players available. I don't think there were a lot of quality players available." I think that's a bull-faced lie right there. We just talked about a lot of quality players moving. The only thing the Canucks really did that stood out to me was acquiring Lindholm, and I think it's up for debate whether or not that was a trade that is currently working out. So what do you think about this from Patrick Allvin?
That's just silly. I don't know if it's sour grapes or it's trying to pull the wool over the reporter's eyes or his fans' eyes or what, but it's kind of pretentious. We were involved in all the top trades, but determined there wasn't much quality out there. That's just nonsense. I think yes, they got their trade done early. It hasn't had the impact that they hope, and so far, and it still might. But there was Vancouver thought maybe they would get involved at the trade deadline. There was other teams too that Bruins, adding Pat Maroon, the Leafs. I don't know what they're doing. The Lightning. I'm not a big Matt Dumba fan. There was some bad grades that we could toss out as well. But maybe the worst grade going to Canucks GM Patrick Allvin.
So I think it's a good time to get to our first break on this show. We'll hear a message from our sponsors, DraftKings, and then we'll get to our big topic segment. Grade the GM, Kent Hughes, at the helm of his third NHL trade deadline. Stay with us. You are listening to the Canadiens Connection podcast here on Rocket Sports Radio.
We know hockey games move fast, but with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL, you can score faster than anything happening on the ice. This week, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 instantly in bonus bets. Maybe you want to make a bet on 5 different players who are going to score a goal tonight. The opportunities are endless on DraftKings Sportsbook. There are so many different combinations, opportunities, specials, parlays, straight up money line bets, you name it. There's so many ways to play on DraftKings Sportsbook. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app with the code THPN. New customers bet just $5 on the NHL and get $200 instantly in bonus bets. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook with code THPN. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas. 21 plus age varies by jurisdiction, void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. See dkng.com/hockey for eligibility and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gaming resources. NHL and the NHL Shield are registered trademarks of the National Hockey League. Copyright NHL 2024. All rights reserved.
Welcome back to Canadiens Connection podcast here on Rocket Sports Radio. I'm Michael Spinella. You can find me on Twitter at the Spinella, and with me in the studio is our president and founder of Rocket Sports, Rick Stevens. Make sure to give him a follow on Twitter at Rocket Sports. You can also follow at Habs Connection on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and you can check out our website, CanadiensConnection.fm. Just a reminder here, too, to make sure that you tap that subscribe button to the Canadiens Connection podcast in the player or your favorite podcasting app. That way you never miss a single episode. And trade deadline week has come to an end. The Montreal Canadiens were clearly in the category of sellers once again at this year's NHL trade deadline. Of course, they're in the process of rebuilding, and it was a perfect opportunity for Kent Hughes to move some assets that won't be part of this team in the long run as they try to become a Stanley Cup contender down the road. Last week on this podcast, we talked about the history of Kent Hughes at the trade deadline. We finally got to see that in action this week, and well, based on where the market was at, did he take full advantage of the opportunity, Rick?
Well, that's what we're going to have to. I think we said that the market was kind of setting up perfectly. It set up perfectly when Lindholm went and then Sean Monahan, and he jumped and he took advantage. Then the market was setting up perfectly when it came to a right-handed or a right-shot defenseman, veteran, and did he take advantage there? Of course, goaltending was another situation. So I think we'll try to evaluate how Kent Hughes fared in the trades he made and the ones that he didn't make.
Yeah, so I guess kind of time to try and grade the GM this episode, and let's talk about all the trades that he made leading up to this deadline, starting with the Sean Monahan trade to the Winnipeg Jets. So it was Sean Monahan traded in exchange for the 2024 first-round pick and a 2027 conditional third-round pick. That happened all the way back on February 2nd. And to be honest, I think A++ work on this one. You received the return that you wanted in that first rounder. And I think this was probably one of the better returns that teams got on a rental. Nice to get that work done early. It seemed like early on the price was a little bit higher. But as we approach the trade deadline, I feel like the price on players kind of dipped a little bit.
So I'm going to give him an A. Not an A+. And here's I think it was brilliant what he got back from on the Sean Monahan trade, and then what he got in bringing Sean Monahan here too, but grading just this trade deadline, and we include that early February trade. The price that Kent Hughes put out there was a first-round pick and a top prospect. And that seemed awfully high for Sean Monahan. But he said that he wanted 2 assets. And did he get back 2 assets? Well, he got that first-round pick, though it's going to be a late first-round pick, obviously, in the 2024 draft. And Kent said, my scouts are a little iffy on those late first round picks. Maybe not have the same value as what they've had in the past. And for the second asset, Kent Hughes got a conditional 3rd round pick in 2027. So that's in 3 drafts. And that pick only materializes if the Winnipeg Jets win the Stanley Cup this year. So he got his 2 assets, but not really. That's a long shot. Good luck to the Winnipeg Jets, but there's a lot of teams that have a pretty good chance of winning the Stanley Cup. But did he get 2 assets? I think that his condition here, the 3rd rounder, was just to kind of get close to meeting his unrealistic asking price in the first place. So I'll give him an A. Getting the first round pick was good. I'll just dock him that plus for setting his price to unachievable range, and I'll give him a full credit for jumping on and being aggressive with the Winnipeg Jets once that Calgary to Vancouver trade happened.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely fair, and some good points there. Of course, it's a bit of a long shot to get that 3rd round pick in 2027, but it's the Winnipeg Jets. They're having a good season. You never know, right?
Yeah, well, Canadian Stanley Cup would be great.
Exactly.
Except if it was the Leafs. But anyway.
Yeah, that's fair. Another trade that Kent Hughes made this past week, and we mentioned it a little bit earlier, but Jan Mysak traded to the Anaheim Ducks in exchange for Jacob Perreault. This one I feel pretty neutral about overall. I don't think it really moves the needle or changes a whole lot. I think this was simply swapping out players that maybe weren't given a ton of opportunity, maybe weren't succeeding to their full potential on the teams that they were at. Of course, Jacob Perreault, a former 27th overall in 2020. This season with the San Diego Gulls, he put up 18 points in 31 games. Jan Mysak, drafted in the same draft, but a little bit later in that 2nd round. And just not a player that Jeff Wool liked a whole lot. I like the new opportunity for Jan Mysak. Jacob Perreault, again, we'll have to wait and see on this one. This is a trade that either we'll revisit it in a few years and have something to say, or we simply don't. So I don't know. Is it completely neutral, a fair grade?
Yeah, I think a fresh start for both is fair. This, as you said, not going to move the needle. Perreault's been disappointing. There's no sugarcoating that. As you said, a former first round pick certainly hasn't lived up to any of that billing. He's played 161 AHL games. He's 21 years old. He has 91 points in that time. And played entirely with the Gulls, except for one game he played in the NHL with Anaheim. But that was back in the 2021-22 season. As far as his qualities, he's got an NHL caliber shot, no question. It's an accurate shot. It's a heavy shot. But he, his on ice work ethic has been questioned. He doesn't engage all the time. His play against away from the puck has been questioned. His defensive play has been questioned. He's got no physical game. He's just looked like an unengaged player, or certainly at best inconsistent. Whether that will change being in a hometown kind of player, whether that will change being at Place Bell, and whether JF Wool can get something out of him, that's remained to be seen. For whatever reason, JF Wool didn't seem to care for Jan Mysak. And it's odd because he is got one of the highest work ethics on the team. He's got great hockey sense. He knows where to go. He's fierce forechecker. We remember at the beginning of the season the famous quote by JF Wool, we're not expecting any offense out of Mysak. And he went the next two games and potted goals. Here you go, coach. It's puzzling why that's the case, and Scott Wheeler, I included it in an article I did on Perot this week on thn.com/Montreal. A quote from Scott Wheeler on Mysak saying, "I've seen such an impressive player who works hard, has plenty of skill, and looks to me like a better prospect and player than his numbers in 3 seasons since he was selected would indicate." And that is because he didn't get opportunities. Why? I don't know. You'd have to directly ask JF Wool. Chris G directly asked JF Wool about Jacob Perreault, and this is what he said.
Not sure if he's going to be in the lineup tomorrow. We'll see. We'll see about that. We have decisions to make on the lineup, but we know he's a skilled player. That he's a former first rounder. That was very good in juniors and had some decent years in the AHL. It might have been a little tougher for him in the last few years, but the skill level is there. So it's up to us to see if he could flourish under us here in Laval, and we intend to put him in some good situations in the right chair and see what he can do for us.
So JF Wool referencing the fact that he was a first-round pick, he's a skilled player and had good success in junior, kind of ignoring the fact of what he has done in the past few years in the AHL, and he said hopefully we'll be able to get that skill if we put him in the right situations, in the right chair.
Again?
Have you heard that before?
I feel like we've heard too much.
Is that a Martyism? Marty St. Louis talks about players in the right chair. It seems that JF Wool has picked up on that and said, we're going to have to put Jacob Perreault in the right chair. Why then didn't he put Jan Mysak in the right chair, so to speak? Makes you wonder if JF Wool is in the right chair.
Yeah, that's absolutely fair, and it didn't sound like he was totally convinced about putting Jacob Perreault in the lineup. Hope I'm not reading too much into that, and I feel like Jeff Wool, I'm a little bit disappointed in his intel on the player too. It seemed like he was pretty vague, and I think you kind of alluded to that a little bit as well.
Yeah, going back, reading his Hockey DB page or something, I had hoped that he had a little bit more insight, as you say.
And I think now we'll get into the final and the only trade that happened on actual trade deadline day for the Montreal Canadiens, and that is Jake Allen traded to the New Jersey Devils for a conditional 3rd-round pick in 2025. I think this is a B. This is just the right move to make for both sides. I think the New Jersey Devils get something that they needed, a veteran, a stable netminder that they can have in their system, help shepherd in some young goaltenders like Nico Dawes. I think New Jersey also went ahead and revamped their goaltending a little bit too, trading away Vitek Vanacek to the San Jose Sharks in exchange for Kakinen. Not someone that they necessarily coveted, but a warm body of sorts. We'll probably hear something about that a little bit later. But I think Montreal finally puts an end to this 3-goalie tandem. The Montreal media can finally lay off here. I think the last year and a half, it's gotten a little bit ugly between the Montreal media and Jake Allen. A lot of undeserved criticism, in my opinion. And I think people kind of forget how good a Hab Jake Allen was. When he first came in, Carey Price, there was some uncertainty as to what he could do, constantly battling injuries. Jake Allen came in, he was solid. He put up some good performances the past couple seasons since Montreal has been in this rebuild. He's not had a whole lot in front of him, certainly just got tossed into the fire, and it's hard to succeed in that kind of a situation.
Yeah, it's really cringeworthy what has happened, and you see the Montreal legacy media, you see them lead and you see Habs fans follow in just hatred towards Jake Allen. Any goal he let in, there would be outrage on social media. As you've mentioned before, not the same treatment to a Sam Montembeault. And I think this kind of This is the worst of the vicious media in Montreal. When they talk about the media being vicious, it's just absolutely pile on and criticize one player, usually the Anglophone player, in order to promote their favorite player. And in this case, it's promoting and heaping praise upon Sam Montembeault way more enthusiastically, overzealously than is deserved, and criticizing Jake Allen far more than it's deserved. We saw that with Lars Eller and David Desharnais. We saw that, you mentioned Carey Price, when Carey Price came in and Cristobal Huet, and they were upset about him being traded and Price being given the keys, kind of thing. It's unfortunate because Jake Allen is a good person. He's a good team guy. He's a good backup goalie. He's a solid backup goalie. And I think that, the Canadiens, it's clear, we've talked about this in previous podcasts, none of the three goaltenders is showing as a competent, consistent number one goaltender this season. Despite all of the praise for Montembeault, or they don't have dissimilar stats. Each of them has a losing record. Each of them has goals against in the threes. Each of them has a save percentage around 900. And when you look at goals saved above expected, we've said it before, Montembeault's been around 40th in the National Hockey League. Primo's been around 50th, and Allen's been around 60th. So none of that screams, competency or excitement. And I think that, it's just been a difficult time for Jake Allen's the veteran here, and I think what our listeners may not understand, or Canadiens fans in general, or hockey fans in general, of how difficult it is to operate in a three-goalie tandem, especially when you're used to something completely opposite. There is a big difference. And to be quite frank, I don't know that I realized that how important it was to the goaltending staff until I talked to goaltenders who were in that situation. And what you don't understand is that it's not only, goaltenders are creatures of habit. They need to get into a routine, just like scorers are, just like defense. They need to get into a routine. And so, if Jake Allen is starting one every 3 games or whatever it turns out to be, he's in that rotation. He has that expectation. It feels comfortable, and he can get in a rhythm for the games played and getting himself up for those games. But it's more than that. When you go to practice, every day you go to practice, and in a 2-goalie system, there are 2 nets, and each goalie has their net, and they go to that net, and yes, they go to the same net every practice for the entire season. And that just feels comfortable, and they go through the routines. In the 3-goalie tandem, one goalie's always out. They're the ones meeting with the goalie coach, Eric Crawford, meeting with the goalie coach, and where am I today, Coach? Do I get a net? Which net do I get? Am I the one that does individual work? It may sound minor, but if you have an office job and you have to share desks, and when you get in the morning, you don't know where you're going to be. It's probably would be a little unsettling for you. Not even that then you have to face the best shooters in the world. So this has been difficult for Jake Allen, both the criticism and the lack of routine, and I think that's caused his numbers to be, and the fact that he plays behind a team that is 26th in the National Hockey League has caused his numbers not to be up around where his career average is.
Yeah, and I think one last thing I'll add in terms of the criticism is look at this past week. I think Jake Allen had a great game against the Nashville Predators, got the win. Didn't hear a single compliment about Jake Allen anywhere. Then you look at that game against Carolina where Montembeault got the start, a 4-1 loss for the Montreal Canadiens. Didn't hear anyone say anything bad about Montembeault, even though he wasn't particularly great. So is Jake Allen an all-star goalie? Is he an amazing goaltender? Probably not. Is Montembeault an amazing goaltender? Also, no. So I think that I have a lot of time for criticism that is deserved. If anyone was particularly not good, then yeah, by all means, I think fair criticism is totally fine. But like you said, it was getting pretty ugly, and I think to an extent, I'm just happy that Jake Allen gets a fresh start here.
And let me just a point that you've been making regularly is that Jake Allen took a lot of those difficult starts. And now either Sam Montembeault, likely Sam Montembeault, but either Sam Montembeault or Caden Primo are not going to get regularly these. They're going to have to start facing these tougher teams that Jake Allen was facing. As we know, as we said last week, the strength of schedule for the Canadiens is pretty tough as we go forward to the end of the season, and that's going to play a factor as well.
Yeah, that's exactly right as well. Now, we have quite a bit of audio to get to here, and I think let's start off with some audio from Jake Allen, and he talks about an opportunity for a fresh start.
It's been a different year for me and, the three of us here in Montreal. But, for me to get to this point, there's been different conversations throughout the year. And obviously a lot of the times at the trade deadline, things sort of wait till the last minute. And, I've known that New Jersey's had interest for a while. And to make this happen today, I'm really looking forward to the new opportunity, the fresh start, get back in the net, try to get a little bit of a rhythm here again in practice and in games, and finish off the season strong. We're a few points out of a spot. Push for this season, make a good finish here, and then get ready and get prepared for next year.
So thanks to TSN for that audio interviewing Jake Allen right after he learned about the trade. Although you'll notice that he said, I've known for some time that New Jersey has had some interest in me. So that's interesting. And we'll talk about that a little bit later once we get to Kent Hughes finally pulling the trigger on that. I was just mentioning how difficult a three goalie rotation is. And Jake Allen said, I want to get into a rhythm both in game, and he mentions practice there as well. That it's just an unsettling thing when you don't have your own net. Also, Jake Allen is the ultimate team guy. Did you notice that he said we're just a couple of points out of a playoff spot? Already, he is a New Jersey Devil. He is a team guy. He's saying we. I always appreciated that about Jake, is that his loyalty to the team, and he's already transferred that loyalty to the Devils.
Yeah, it's a great point too. It almost threw me off when he said "we" for a second. I was like, "What?" But I love that about Jake Allen too, and certainly a leader in the dressing room, well-liked guy. So happy that he's going to get this fresh start. You talked about that 3 goalie system and how difficult it is. Let's hear about that from Jake Allen himself.
Oh, it's super difficult. It's very difficult. There's definitely days when you question a lot of things, but at the same time, it's part of the business. Those decisions are out of our control. We just have to go out and play.
So super difficult, says Jake. Again, it's hard for fans to understand, but you heard him, and Jake is a very positive guy. So for him to say super difficult, that it's been weighing on him. And he said at times it causes you to question things, question why it had been allowed to go on so long. I'm filling in the blanks, maybe unfairly so. But you can imagine that Jake and the others were saying, what is going on here? Why, why is this happening? And we remember that Kent Hughes said, hopefully it'll be resolved in training camp before the season starts. It wasn't. Hopefully it'll be resolved soon. It wasn't. It went on and on and on, and to the point where Kent Hughes was saying, "Well, we don't really have to resolve it by the trade deadline. Maybe we'll deal with this in the summer." But fortunately for these 3 individuals, it was resolved a little late, but at least now.
Yeah, so it is nice to move on from that. I'm curious to see what this Montembeault-Primo tandem's going to look like for Montreal, and we certainly have quite a bit of time to figure out if that's a tandem that has anything to it, so certainly going to keep our eyes on that. We also have some audio coming from Tom Fitzgerald, and he's talking about why pursue Jake Allen.
Well, I mean, we targeted Jake Allen, for obvious reasons, his experience. We know where Jake Allen is in his career. Jake Allen's got some rust on him too, because he's been one of 3 goalies, sharing a net. So he's going to need some time here to get that rust off. But it wasn't really about the remainder of this year with Jake because of his personal situation of lack of playing, and but it was more moving forward, where once he gets back into rhythm and where he feels he needs to go and needs to be, then we're looking at a potential tandem that maybe could rate up there in the league if I was able to land one of these big fishes. So for us, it was really more about getting the right person. He's a great character person, great locker room. Like I said, he's a fantastic athlete. He's a Stanley Cup champion. Something that we wanted to add.
All right. A lot in that. And Tom Fitzgerald, for those of you that don't know, GM and president of hockey operations. Anyways, he's the GM of the New Jersey Devils. And he says he knows what we're getting in Jake Allen. Very complimentary about Jake Allen's character. Talked about him being an incredible athlete. Talked about him being a Stanley Cup champion. And listen, the New Jersey Devils they've had goaltending struggles. Tom Fitzgerald made the bet of going into the season with a Vitek Vanacek and Akira Schmid. And it looks like Vitek Vanacek hasn't been the same player. Schmid not ready yet for NHL play. Nico Dawes thrown into the mix there as well. And they needed to stabilize the goaltending position. And interesting that he says, we know who Jake Allen is. And you can infer from that he knows that Jake Allen isn't defined by his numbers this season. He says Jake Allen's got some rust on him, saying that it's been difficult that he hasn't had a rhythm, he hasn't had a rotation, and he's going to have to knock that off, as Tom says. But fascinating that he lays out the plan there for their goaltending, that it's his plan, that Jake Allen is not a stopgap measure. He's not a end to the end of the season measure. Jake Allen solves a current situation for them and a near future situation for them, that meaning next year. That Tom Fitzgerald's plan is to go out and we know that Markstrom, there was talks between New Jersey and Calgary about Markstrom. We know that someone contacted the Bruins with respect to Linus Ullmark, and Ullmark didn't want to change his no trade situation, and so that Tom Fitzgerald plans in the summer, around the draft, over the summer, to go out and get a bona fide number one goaltender, and that in his words, if he lands that big fish along with Jake Allen, they may have one of the best goaltending tandems in the National Hockey League. That's his plan. And that way, he's going to allow Akira Schmid and Nico Daws to stay in Utica and learn their game and get some confidence and work all the kinks out in the AHL, not the NHL. The other thing that was fascinating was Fitzgerald mentioned that it's concerning to him that those two goaltenders were eating up their games towards waiver exempt status in the NHL and losing. So that he wants to make sure that those guys get back to the AHL so they don't burn through that status. Relate that to Caden Primo and put them in a difficult situation where they might have to expose one of those young goaltenders to waivers. Thought it was fascinating. I'll just mention about Kaapo Kähkönen that Tom Fitzgerald was asked, have you seen his numbers? Why did you go out and specifically target Kaapo Kähkönen and bring him in? And he said very plainly, it's not about the player. It's simply about giving us flexibility going forward. He's an NHL body. He's an NHL backup goaltender. So it looks like they're going to ride Jake Allen and Kaapo Kähkönen till the end of the season, let their other two goaltenders be able to gain some experience in the AHL. And getting rid of Vanecek, Fitzgerald said it's unlikely that he's injured, and it's unlikely he's going to be back anyway. So this season, it's somebody that had a plan, and that they had targeted Jake Allen, and that they had targeted him some time ago.
Yeah, and we do have one more bit of audio coming from Tom Fitzgerald, and you kind of mentioned this before briefly, that the New Jersey Devils, since the beginning of the season, seem to have some goaltending struggles. Well, why not acquire Jake Allen earlier in the season?
No, we inquired on Jake Allen a while back, but was told we were on his no-trade list.
Okay, short clip, but really important one, super important. I don't know how long a while back was. I don't. Is that weeks? Is that months? I don't know. Was that going back to when the whole Markstrom deal fell apart? I don't know. However, that Tom Fitzgerald said he inquired with Kent Hughes. Is Jake? We'd like to talk about Jake Allen. The response was, he's not available. You're on his no trade list. So all of that, nothing then happened until trade deadline day. And I guess Tom Fitzgerald made the call again and said, hey, can you ask Jake if he'll waive his no trade? And Jake Allen confirmed that he had waived the no trade and allowed the trade to go forward. But it begs the question, this three goalie tandem could have been rectified earlier. So what's going on there? New Jersey wanted to get this done before trade deadline day, didn't get done till trade deadline day. Why is that? Just a small clip, but I thought it was an important one.
Yeah, I think that's pretty important too, and it's interesting to hear Jake Allen did end up lifting that no trade clause and go ahead to New Jersey. It seems like this might be the right fit for him professionally right now. I know lifestyle wise, I'm sure Jake Allen would have preferred to stay in Montreal, but I look at where New Jersey is, and I feel like, you know what, giving Jake Allen a ton of games this season and then having him in a really good tandem next season, you can't ask for more professionally if you're Jake Allen.
Yeah, I agree. And just while we're on that point, you said give Jake Allen a ton of games. Again, we have a condition in the trade that third round pick is conditional. A 2025 pick next draft, and it could be bumped up to a second round pick. And what are those conditions? Well, the conditions are that Jake Allen plays 40 regular season games in the 2024-2025 season. That's next season, 40 games. And his club, I'm reading directly from the condition, his club, not the New Jersey Devils, it says his club qualifies for the 2025 Stanley Cup playoffs. Then the third round pick in 2025 becomes a second round pick in 2025. Is that achievable? Or is this, again, Kent Hughes doing the window dressing, the agent getting in there and modifying the contract so it looks good for his client? Can Jake Allen play 40 games next season? Not if Tom Fitzgerald's plan goes as he planned. If he goes out and gets a Jacob Markstrom, he's playing 55 games. He's playing 60 games. And Allmark, he's playing a lot of games. Jake Allen's playing 20 to 30 games, maybe. He's not going to get to that 40. But again, the interesting part, it says his club qualifies for the playoffs. So taking into account that New Jersey may trade Jake Allen sometime through next season, thought that was fascinating as well. But again, this is a really high bar. This is take it that it's most likely that the Canadiens will receive a third round pick next year. The bar that they set to get that second round pick is really, really high and likely unachievable.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And you mentioned Kent Hughes, and we just heard from the Devils GM. Well, let's hear from Kent Hughes as he talks about trading away character players like Jake Allen and Sean Monahan.
We traded two really, really good human beings, two great professionals. I'm sure all of you that are around the team on a consistent basis know that. I mean, Jake has been so professional from the time that I got here, and his efforts and concerns weren't just around Jake Allen and his performance in net. It's like he's taken ownership of this team and trying to help us put it in the right direction for what we want to accomplish, knowing that he wouldn't be here for it, whether we kept him for the remainder of his contract or not. So I can't say enough good things about Jake. He was great in net for us. He was great in the locker room. He was a great leader, and he was a great member of the community, and he's going to be missed, as was Sean.
Really important comment there. A lot is made of David Savard and his effect on the younger defenseman. I think it's has been a bit lost, at least by fans and in the media, the effect that Jake Allen has had on the young goaltenders. I think that what he was describing there, Kent Hughes, was a very unselfish player, a very team-first kind of player. And said, since I've been here, he's been great in net. He's been great in the dressing room. He's been a great leader, and he's been a great community person. We know he has his charity golf tournament every year. And is it going to be tough for Jake Allen to leave? Every bit as tough as for if it had have been David Savard. Absolutely. He loved being in Montreal. He loved being close to his family in New Brunswick. and he was fully committed to the Montreal Canadiens.
Yeah, taking ownership of the team is the part that really stood out to me. And I believe him and everything he said about Jake Allen. True professional, and he's certainly going to be missed in that locker room by, I think, the entire team. One more quote coming from Kent Hughes here. This time he's talking about getting the best trade value is not always a priority.
Not everything that we do can be strictly based on maximizing asset value. Right, so if we look at every player individually and say, if I trade him at this point in time, we get the best return for that player. We have to balance that with other things like what we're trying to do. Listen, I think if we're efficient in terms of how we manage our assets, we put ourselves in a better position to build a hockey team. But ultimately, we're trying to build a hockey team. And if a player has value to us in terms of what we're trying to build by being physically present and part of our organization, then that's going to trump, trading that player at a later point for something a little bit inferior, because there's value in his time with us that we're going to carry beyond his time with us. And that's certainly something that we were considering in the case of David.
Okay, so he ends with the lead there. This is all about why they didn't trade David Savard. All of what he said there is why he didn't trade a defenseman who was in demand. We know he was in demand. We know that the Toronto Maple Leafs inquired, that the Tampa Bay Lightning inquired. There was a report out of New York that the Islanders inquired as well. There was, of course, in the Montreal media, don't trade David Savard, don't trade David Savard, don't trade David Savard. And I think that Kent Hughes here is saying that, you guys in your trade grades, they don't apply. Just put them away. They don't apply because you can't rate us on the asset value. We may be fulfilling another goal here. There's intangibles that don't just relate to getting the top value for the player. And listen, David Savard, no question, would have delivered very good value at this trade deadline because the market was setting up, because there was a need for particularly veteran right-handed defensemen who play well in the playoffs. It was setting up that way. But as Tom Fitzgerald said in his press conference, the market is the market. You can't decide. You can't. You have to be flexible. And I think what we've seen here, we talked about characteristics of general managers. It's pretty clear that Kent Hughes approaches the deadline the same way every single time. He sets his price super high, as he did that very first one, and he got the first round picks and the Justin Barron and Toffoli and Arturi Lekin, all that. He cashed in. Because the market was able to deliver that. This was termed a buyer's market, I don't think that Kent Hughes adjusted in that regard, and we know that the Toronto Maple Leafs balked at offering a first-round pick for a David Savard, and they went elsewhere and brought in players that were less value. And that way, Kent Hughes didn't collect any value from his asset. But he said, his excuse there is we may be fulfilling other goals. What are those? Intangibles, I think he's talking about. Leadership. He's talked about that before. David Savard is a big brother. Okay. What else? Popularity with media, popularity with fans. Okay. He fulfills the fact that they can toss him out and he has a particular birthplace and speaks a particular language for the media interviews. Yes, David Savard fills all of those things that don't have anything to do with asset value. But is that a reason to keep him, to be a big brother? Isn't that the coaching staff? Aren't they supposed to be the ones that help young players through this? I get that David Savard has been great for a Caden Gooley, but it's 3 years now. It's 3 years. I think he's all of those attaboys that he's done to his fellow defensemen, I think they get it. I think they're ready to take the next step. And just as Kent Hughes said, we're passing the torch of leadership from a Sean Monahan to a Nick Suzuki and a Cole Caulfield. The same has to be done with the young defensemen. Listen, David Savard can be effective in passing on those little tidbits, those little bits of knowledge. He can give positive reinforcement to the defenseman. But is that more valuable now? Or is the availability of 20 minutes and 32 seconds per game and that lineup slot more beneficial to those young defensemen? Because that's what he takes up every game. He is the obstacle there. He eats up 20 and a half minutes every game. And if you spread that around a little bit and give a little bit more to each of the other defensemen, if you're able to bring up somebody from Laval and give them some experience, is that more valuable right now than the little pats on the back? I don't know. I don't know. But Kent Hughes is saying that is important to the team right now, and we know that Marty St. Louis was not happy when Sean Monahan was removed from his lineup. He probably would have been more unhappy if David Savard was removed. He's a competitive kind of guy. But does that fit into the plan of rebuilding? Because, listen, David Savard is not going to be part of this squad when it's competing for a Stanley Cup. Just isn't. He just isn't. And why is that? Well, because he'll be another year older. And remember, it was 3 years ago when he was a third pairing defenseman for a Stanley Cup winner in the Tampa Bay Lightning. He's going to run into injury problems. And he may not, a right-handed defenseman with his kind of qualities was in demand this trade deadline, may not be as in demand next trade deadline. The other thing that nobody talks about is, what if the Montreal Canadiens are not such a clear seller next year at the trade deadline? What if they're 5 points out of a playoff spot? Is Kent Hughes going to be absolutely crucified if he trades David Savard, who will then be on an expiring contract, and try to extract some value out of that, the value that he missed getting this year? You got to think of these things. I know that folks are saying, just put him on the trade block next trade deadline. Well, he's going to be a rental, so the value goes down there. And are the Canadiens going to be in a completely different category? Are the Canadiens going to be a buyer rather than a seller next year? I think all of these are considerations. And again, we know, we've talked about it to death. There was only one retention slot. There could only be one trade where salary was withheld. They used that for Jake Allen and got the third round pick. Could they have retained salary and got a higher level pick, maybe a prospect back for David Savard? We don't know.
Yeah, and
Am I ranty? I'm sorry. Am I getting a little ranty?
No, that's totally fine. I was just gonna see if I could add into to that rant a little bit. Backtracking a little bit, David Savard was pretty inconsistently on the trade boards, depending on how much stock you put on those. The TSN one, he seemed like he was there throughout January, kind of disappeared in February, didn't reappear on it until the last couple of days. Based on The Athletic on Chris Johnston's board, David Savard was actually a little bit ahead of Jake Allen this past week at the very least. So, I think it's a little bit disappointing that David Savard was not moved on from, but it seemed like the moment David Savard ended up on those TSM boards, all of a sudden, I think to your point, you started hearing from media and fans like, David Savard's just such a great guy. We can't move on from him. He means so much to these players and this and that. And okay, if that is something that is being valued. There's another defenseman that could have had value at this trade deadline. Why not Mike Matheson?
Well, there you go.
Yeah, so there were certainly options, and I think, looking at where Montreal is with a lot of young defensemen, it would have been nice to clear out some space to give some of them some time. We know Lane Hudson's on his way at some point. It'd be nice to give Mailloux a look at some point this season too. Having David Savard in the lineup every single day, taking up those 20 plus minutes, it's not going to be easy for those young defensemen at all. And I guess to further this a little bit, there were a lot of players I felt like could have been traded at this trade deadline, and one of them on an expiring contract, one Tanner Pearson. I'm kind of surprised that we didn't hear more about that. Yoel Armia is someone that appeared on Chris Johnston's trade board kind of in the last few minutes. I don't know if Yoel Armia is super tradable at this point, but hey, Jake Evans, Jonathan Kovacevic, Josh Anderson, Dvorak, Gallagher, there are a lot more players on this team that I think are worth exploring trades than considered untouchable. But of course, those salary retention spots, like you mentioned, they used the one left on Jake Allen. Perhaps that's something that limited their abilities to move on from another one of these players. But I think that to an extent, as good as the returns Kent Hughes got on both Jake Allen and Sean Monahan, I can't help but feel like he could have done a little bit more here.
Well, and you mentioned the salary retention slot, that the Jake Allen retaining salary uses up the salary retention slot, the third and final salary retention slot for the current year. However, it also uses up one next season. So with Jeff Petrie and Jake Allen, part of the salary retention, and remember, it's not the money, it's not the Canadiens, it's not the cap issue. I think they have almost $20 million available next season for players that are not for players who are not signed to contracts. So it's not the money, but it's those retention slots when you're making the trades, to induce the other team that you've already used up 2 of 3, and that's kind of handcuffing the GM again. You mentioned that list of players, and I just want to refer back to it because you have to ask yourself the question. Tanner Pearson, expired contract. He's gone, won't be re-signed, and you didn't get anything back for him, but it likely would have been a lower draft pick anyway. Yoel Armia, Jake Evans, Kovacevic, Christian Dvorak, Brendan, are these players, we talked about David Savard is he going to be part of the team when it's a contender? No. But neither are any of the other players going to contribute positively if the team becomes that contender. And you see around the league that other GMs are tossing these players overboard. You say there was no market, but how did Klim Kostin get moved? How did Jack Roslovic get moved? How did Andrew Peet get moved? These are all spare parts. And if all that he's able to do at the deadline is to move one player per year, it's going to be a very, very slow process, I think. And Yoel Armia, I heard the bag of pucks thing, but he's actually having, if you check, a very good season and could have been, a piece that might have been useful to a playoff bound team. Again, what prevented that was not having extra salary retention slots available, or we talked about creativity and a couple of the GMs getting very creative, a creative type trade. I think that in this regard, listen, Kent Hughes did well, but everything he did was kind of safe, I think.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty great point. And honestly, I was looking through the social medias the other day, and I forget who it was, but somebody posted a picture of that Montreal team that went to the Stanley Cup final, and only 6 remain. 6 is too many. I'm not going to lie. You could have, I think that the one step in this rebuild that seems to be taking a little bit too long, in my opinion, is clearing the house. Yes, you don't want to move on from Suzuki. Yeah, you probably don't want to move on from Caulfield, but there are a lot of, there's a mixed bag of other players that I don't see why it's necessary to continue to hang on to them, just to kind of further your point.
Right.
So, when will the Canadiens be buyers at the trade deadline? Well, Kent Hughes, let's hear what he has to say about being patient.
We're trying to be, I don't know if patient's the word, but we're trying to make decisions for the right reasons. And in order to do that, if that requires patience, we're trying to do it. Listen, I look forward to the day that we're buying, not selling. Like, I'm as competitive as the next person. I want to feel the highs and lows of winning and losing that come when you're expected to compete for a Stanley Cup. So the faster that it can happen, the better off it is. I'd like to be around for it, but I don't want to do it at the expense of doing it the right way. And I think that's how we all feel as a management group and as an organization.
Kind of like that answer, you want to do things the right way. I agree. It's slow change, it's incremental change, but I think that you have to cash out your assets for value, and then use those assets as he has at the draft to advance, speed up the rebuild when going and using assets to get Newhook, going and using assets to get Kirby Dach. All of that is true. I thought it was interesting that he says, I hope I'll be here when that happens. Like, how long does he figure this slow approach is going to take? And maybe it's the right approach. It's very different from a Vegas approach that says all in every year kind of thing. And maybe Vegas is going to take a deep nosedive one of these years, but as long as they keep being creative, I think they're and have the sole goal of pursuing a Stanley Cup, then I think the experience we have is they're going to be contenders each year. But I thought that it was interesting that on social media people are grasping onto that issue of yes, the Canadiens are going to be buyers soon, not sellers. And I don't think that's exactly what Kent Hughes said. And if you, I know it's a lot to ask fans to go through tough seasons year after year after year, and for them to be sellers at the trade deadline. But that's why when you get the opportunity to be a clear seller, you got to really take advantage.
Yeah, absolutely. And once again, I forget where I saw this, but there was something about, the Canadiens have been sellers for 3 years now. How much longer are fans going to wait and be patient? Well, I think look at some other teams and how long their rebuilds take. It's going to take probably more than 3 years, to be completely honest. Look at, I think the Detroit Red Wings are probably the best example right now, a team that's making the move up the standings from being a perpetual seller and stockpiling assets into a team that's actually going to get into the playoffs this year in all likelihood. So I think a little bit more patience is what we're asking here. And I appreciate that Kent Hughes is at least willing to be patient in that regard, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think that where there'll be pushback from fans is they will say, we were not only patient, with Kent Hughes, but we were patient with Marc Bergevin, and we had to endure a lot of years of patience there when Marc Bergevin was a seller and a lukewarm buyer kind of thing. So I understand that perspective from fans, but it's a rebuild is a difficult thing to rush.
Yeah. So you mentioned Marc Bergevin. Are you ready for this question? You know what? You said that Marc Bergevin was kind of a lukewarm buyer at times, and maybe not a great seller either. What do you think is the worst deadline deal done by Marc Bergevin in his era?
Yeah, I mean, there was Marc Bergevin. It was always talked about that. I don't know if it was Marc himself or his advocates who said he never lost a trade, kind of thing. And when you look at the trades, this player for that player. I don't know if a case can be made, but the vast majority, Marc Bergevin loved to trade. He loved to trade down at the draft. He loved to trade anytime. And most of his trades were just kind of moving the deck chairs around. They were inconsequential trades. And I think back to players that he picked up at the deadline, Jordan Wheeler, Mike Riley, but it was 2017 where he went out and wanted to add veterans to his lineup. And he traded for Steve Ott, Andreas Martinson, and Dwight King, and brought those in. And they had virtually no impact whatsoever. And I think each of them retired or went and played. I think Andreas Martinson went to Europe, or Steve Ott became an assistant coach, and they were players maybe at the end of their careers that had no impact. It wasn't like an Eric Stahl coming in or a Corey Perry. They had virtually no impact, and that 2017 year kind of sticks out to me as Marc Bergevin's worst Canadiens deadline deal.
Honestly, you said 2017, and then you started talking about Steve Ott. I had to think, did Steve Ott actually still play hockey at that point? Talk about end of your career. But in general, that Marc Bergevin era was wild, and looking through some of his trades, I'm surprised at how long he was actually around. And that leads me to the Canadiens Connection question of the week. And we'll ask all of our listeners, what is the most shocked you have been by a Habs trade in the last 20 years? And I'm actually going to share my answer for this one. And this was a Bergevin trade, and that was Subban for Weber. Honestly, when this went down, I remember exactly where I was. I was in a car on the way to an appointment listening to TSN, and just wild. Not a surprise that Subban was moved on from. I feel like you knew for a while that Subban was somebody that they wanted to move out, but the return in Shea Weber was certainly a surprise. I think at the time he might have even been the captain of the Predators as well. So being able to get a player of that quality, and if you were to listen to any of the experts at that time, they were saying, you know what, the Montreal Canadiens got fleeced here. A young player in PK Subban, the Norris Trophy winner, and then bringing back the old has-been Shea Weber. And honestly, looking back, I think this might have actually been one of the few really good trades that Marc Bergevin made, and one of the few trades that the Montreal Canadiens have actually won in the last 20 years. Shea Weber came in. Obviously, he was a big leader, a big part of that run to the Stanley Cup final. And it's a shame that, unfortunately, injuries got to him. But, wow, what a piece that the Montreal Canadiens managed to get back in Shea Weber.
It was shocking. It was a huge bombshell when it happened. And yes, I think that in retrospect, the Canadiens clearly won this trade, that Shea Weber on the ice and off the ice through leadership brought exactly, and I'll give full credit to, I don't very often give full credit to Marc Bergevin for making this trade. It was a hockey trade. It was two prominent players that were exchanged for each other, and the Canadiens got the better value, as it's proven. And we talked a couple of weeks ago, David Poile, GM of Nashville, now retired, said it was a huge regret. That trade for him was a big regret. So, but in terms of impact, it was absolutely shocking.
So we've thrown a lot of information at all of our listeners. So I think with that, we'll let you simmer down a bit. We'll take our final break here. Stay with us. You're listening to the Canadiens Connection podcast here on Rocket Sports Radio.
The Canadiens Connection is proud to be a partner of Rocket Sports Media, digital media publishers of sports and entertainment websites. Their mission is to build a worldwide network of sports fans who are informed, engaged, entertained, and connected. Learn more about RSM, its team, and its portfolio of brands at rocketsportsmedia.com. I bet you enjoy sporting your best Habs jerseys, dressing up your kids and pets in the cutest Habs gear, and showing off your decked-out hockey cave or fanning. Well, don't just show your friends, show your Habs. The Rocket Sports Media team wants you to boast your finest pictures for our global network of Montreal Canadiens fans. Include the hashtag #ShowYourHabs when posting your fan photos on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram. Then log on to showyourhabs.com to see your entries, along with photos and posts from Habs fans all over the world. A proud member of the Rocket Sports Media Network. If you're a business owner looking for the perfect platform to reach a targeted audience of customers, Rocket Sports Media is the solution. Our global hockey community provides unmatched social media reach to an attentive demographic of sports and entertainment fans. We can provide visibility to your company, helping you to engage and leverage this prime group of potential clientele. In addition, we also offer sponsorship opportunities for fan events and featured areas of website content, giving you name and logo recognition. Visit rocketsportsmedia.com to contact us regarding this unique marketing opportunity. For the most trusted source of news, analysis, and features about the Montreal Canadiens, log in to thn.com/Montreal, your year-round source for anything Habs related. That's thn.com/Montreal.
Welcome back to episode 286 of the Canadiens Connection podcast here on Rocket Sports Radio. You can follow at Habs Connection on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and you can check out the website, canadiensconnection.fm. And just a reminder here, you can text us anytime via the Rocket Sports text line. It's 5853-ROCKET. That's 5853-ROCKET. And like I said just before the break, I think we threw out a lot of information at our listeners, and we like to keep everyone up to date and provide some really good coverage of the Montreal Canadiens on a couple different platforms.
We sure do. And just to update that last segment before we move on and tell you where you can find all of our work, I just wanted to check on the because we talked about that it's not necessarily the value of those salaries in the salary retention, the dead cap salaries that are a problem for the Montreal Canadiens right now. It's the salary retention slots, that there's a maximum of 3. If you were wondering, let's update it. A value of $6 million this year is in dead cap space. And already committed for next year's $4.3 million. However, we have to add another almost million, brings it to $7 million in dead cap space. Why is that? Did you know that Carl Alzner is still on the list? Speaking of Marc Bergevin, that for the final year, 2023-24, that the Carl Alzner buyout is still included in the dead cap room. I just thought I'd brighten your day by bringing you that, and then we can move on.
Yeah, that we will do. And here's what you need to know from Rocket Sports. We cover the Montreal Canadiens for the hockey news, so you can find all of our content at thn.com/Montreal. That's the Hockey News Montreal. Game day posts, feature articles. You get information about the Laval Rocket and the Trois-Rivières Lions as well. So head over to thn.com/Montreal. All your Canadiens coverage in one place. And for those that like multimedia content, head over to our YouTube channel. Just search at All Habs, hit the subscribe button, tap the notification bell as well so you never miss a single piece of content that we put out there. Throughout the week, we have a couple different shows, and this past week, Amy Johnson hosted the Habs Hockey Report on 2 different occasions. First and foremost, the episode entitled NHL Scouting Expert Describes Canadiens Trade Deadline in 1 word, and this was a great episode. Amy had a great interview, and with that, Rick, who was that interview?
Jason Bukala, and he's from Sportsnet. He was also formerly a head scout for the Florida Panthers. He knows his stuff, and if you follow his scout analysis on Sportsnet, you know that already. I thought it was really interesting. Amy asked him about who would be interested in, or why would you be interested in a Jake Allen? And he talked about a veteran being able to come in into a situation differently than a younger player, a veteran like Jake Allen, who is a good athlete, who has good habits, who is always well prepared, and who is low maintenance. And talked about that's what scouts are looking for. So lots of questions about why would you bring in a Jake Allen when he's had a difficult season? Well, because you've done your due diligence, you've gathered a lot of information on him that includes not only this season but previous seasons, and the fact that he's going to, as a veteran, be well prepared. I thought they were great comments from Jason, and still, I think it's worth going and taking a look at what he said about Kent Hughes, what he said about Jake Allen, and the trade deadline overall.
Yeah, I think that video still holds up even though we're past the trade deadline. And with the trade deadline going down this week, Amy also provided a reaction video to the Jake Allen trade. And this one's entitled, "Did Kent Hughes Get a Good Return for Jake Allen?" So head over to our YouTube page, hit like if you liked what you saw, leave a comment too, as Amy loves to interact with all of her viewers. Check out both of those videos to make sure that you're fully informed on the trade deadline. This podcast is also available on YouTube. Last week's episode entitled "Trade Deadline, the Habs Have Options." Head over there as well, as we provided a nice foundation as we headed into the trade deadline. Talked about Kent Hughes' history on trade deadlines, and I think this episode also still holds up. A lot of that's still very relevant information, and I think it's going to be interesting to hear the before and after of what we thought about Kent Hughes at the trade deadline. So make sure you head over there, hit that like button if you like what you saw, and we received a lot of great comments too.
We sure did. And yes, the Habs have options. Remember that the trade deadline doesn't end a trade period for Kent Hughes, and some of the things that we talked about in last week's episode, Canadiens Connection episode 285, may apply to trades that Kent Hughes can make in the summer. So it, as you said, really well said, it can provide a good foundation for that.
We've also been doing some live stream watch-alongs for Habs games on YouTube. I'm joined by my colleague Nathan here at Rocket Sports, and we have a lot of fun doing these. Just this past week on Thursday, March the 7th, when Montreal took on the Carolina Hurricanes, we did a full show, a full live stream, and watched along with many of our viewers, a lot of loyal viewers coming back, some new people as well, so we had a lot of fun with that. There's a live chat, you get live reaction, commentary, and we talk about everything Montreal Canadiens and hockey in general. So if you missed that or you tuned in and you like what you saw, well, circle the calendar. March 28th on a Thursday, the Philadelphia Flyers visit Montreal, and Nathan and I will be right back there. So once again, head over to our YouTube channel at All Habs, hit subscribe so you don't miss anything, and tap that notification bell. That way you are informed the moment we put out a new piece of content.
That's right.
And make sure you subscribe to the Rocket Sports Radio podcast on your favorite podcasting app, the Canadiens Connection. Every episode is available at CanadiensConnection.fm. Also available on most players out there. So if you're listening on your favorite player, hit that subscribe button. And if you're enjoying the show, we'd appreciate if you left us a 5-star review. That goes a long way in helping us out. And we are your inside link to the Montreal Canadiens. Rick, a little bit of a Rocket Sports team announcement. We're going to be recruiting a little bit. What do you have to say about this?
Join us. We have a lot of fun. We offer a platform and many different types of content, whether it be on the Hockey News site or whether in our multimedia content, podcasting, YouTube. And we have a great team. We work well together, and it's just an opportunity to add to your skills, and also gives you a voice, a platform for your voice to share it with so many Montreal Canadiens fans.
Absolutely. It's a ton of fun. We enjoy interacting with each other, and a good opportunity to learn and put out some more great content. So we look forward to hearing from you. And now it's a good time to get to our Canadiens Connection question of the week. What is the most shocked you have been by a Habs trade in the last 20 years? We want to hear from you. Reach out to us via the Rocket Sports text line, 5853-ROCKET. And for those that might have a little bit more to say, how can they email us?
You can email us at hello@rocketsportsmedia.com. And, a little bit of a primer. Maybe you want to talk about Scott Gomez for Ryan McDonough. Maybe that shocked you. That fits in that 20-year timeline. Maybe you were upset with Mikhail Sergachev going for Jonathan Drouin, or have a different perspective on PK Subban and Shea Weber.
Absolutely. And like I was saying before, we got a ton of reaction on YouTube within the comments, and we'd like to share some of those reactions with you today. Edited just a little bit for clarity, and I'll start things off with a comment coming from Joel Luna 5342, and what they have to say is Hughes can't trade Savard, Armia, Gallagher, or Dvorak. Nobody wants them. Get rid of Savard, Armia, Gallagher, Dvorak, Allen, Primo, Matheson, Anderson, Gouli, Harris, Kovacevic, and get the captain in here.
Well, who is he happy with? Joe, tell us who you're happy with. There doesn't seem to be, I guess, Cole Caulfield's fine in there. Anyways, a comment, somebody wants some action, and we're happy to hear from you. A comment from at she_26. He said, I don't know if it's a she or he, but we'll say she. Baby Xhekaj, and referring to, of course, Florian Xhekaj, definitely deserves a prospect spotlight as we provided to him in episode 285. He's been doing an awesome job as far as Marty St. Louis goes, and just says, ha, 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 ha. He's been reading, watching, listening about himself. That should be his truth. To say maybe a little bit of vanity is being kind. I guess I used those words last week. And goes on to say when Patrick Waugh came, and the press asked about Patrick Waugh, that Marty St. Louis instead made it all about him. And goes on to, I'm editing as we go here, jealousy once again reared its ugly head. Regardless of that, I believe, and have believed since last year, that both Kent Hughes and Marty St. Louis need to go. Thank you to she_26.
Yeah, I love that reaction as well, coming from at Dark Matter Eclipse. Who is untouchable? Hughes says anyone can be traded, but with the price tag Hughes seems to put on his players, don't expect Gouli or Xhekaj to be traded unless you're getting a young first-line 100-point player in return. So great comment there coming from Dark Matter Eclipse. That's pretty funny.
A great comment. This one comes from Frank Huber, 9912. We asked about who would be your untouchables coming up to the trade deadline or the trading over the summer. Who are the players on the team that are untouchable? Frank says, number 1, Jordan Harris. He's smart, hands off. Number 2, Joshua Waugh. No. 3, Arbor, because he's Arbor. All right. And then goes on to say, by the way, sounds like Marty St. Louis is on a bad asset trip. That the truth. Can we have a real coach next year? So a couple of comments there. Not very supportive of Marty St. Louis.
Coming from at Patrick LaFleche 9559, what they have to say is, but no all-stars, no high-end talent, no showstopper. So a little bit disappointed in, I guess, Montreal Canadiens roster that lacks high-end talent.
There's always hope that they win the draft lottery and Celebrini is available. This one comes from our dear friend Leo in St. Petersburg, Russia. He wanted to share a couple of thoughts that he had. It's a very long, excellently written comment. I'm just going to read a little bit of it, but he listened to last week's podcast and wanted to share a couple of thoughts. He said, in his opinion, Marty is probably right, more so than not. Social media isn't just a part of a young hockey player's life. It is their life. That's how I see it. That's just my opinion or my truth, if you will. Thank you for everything you do. I'm your devoted listener and viewer, Leo in St. Petersburg. So thank you, Leo. That was great, and it's a good point that the young players see social media a little bit different than maybe we do. I think part of our reason about asking why Marty wants to be going through all of social media and articles and things to protect his players is that his job, or is he busy enough as it is? And if that's indeed something the Montreal Canadiens want to do, couldn't they have their communication staff look after that so he can get on with the busy job of being head coach in the National Hockey League?
Yeah, we receive all sorts of great messages throughout the week. We appreciate that all of you are listening to us and had some comments to share. And we just want to let you know we're also listening and reading your comments, tweets, and emails for us as well. So we appreciate these interactions and keep those coming in. Just a little update on what to expect from the Montreal Canadiens this week. Starting today on March the 9th, the Toronto Maple Leafs are coming to town. I believe this will be a Sam Montembeault start, so look out for that tonight. A couple days in between games here, going to March the 12th, the Columbus Blue Jackets come to town, and then on the 14th, it's the big bad Boston Bruins, which is always a fun rivalry. I think the last time they faced the Bruins, it was a pretty high-scoring game, not going to lie, so looking forward to that as well.
For sure.
So that's going to be a wrap for us today. Thank you all for listening. Make sure that you are subscribed to the Canadiens Connection in the player or on any of your favorite podcasting apps. You can share it on social media as well if you like what you heard. Enjoy the week. We'll see you next Saturday on March the 16th for another great episode. Thank you all for listening to the Canadiens Connection podcast here on Rocket Sports Radio.
Click subscribe so you never miss an episode of Canadiens Connection. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Rocket Sports.